Pepsi's decision to acquire Mountain Dew really started in 1963, and there was a bottler down in North Carolina, the Minges Bottling Company, that raised this as a possibility with Don Kendall, who was really the founder of PepsiCo. And Minges said, there's this brand that people love that we need to acquire. Don Kendall went down, saw how people responded to the brand, and we pulled it into the franchise. It became really our first flavored soft drink within the PepsiCo system. Here's a brand that had the imagery of kind of a hillbilly kind of going up to the shed with a shotgun, right? That's where it was kind of birthed with that imagery, leading to, in the 80s, where you had country lifestyle going against yuppies, leading to the skateboarding culture that you saw coming through the 90s. There is a thread that went throughout this Mountain Dew experience over the years, and we've really distilled it down to three things. It's one, Mountain Dew is always about the DIY ethic. It's do it yourself. Whether it's the hillbilly charging the mountain, whether it's the country lifestyle, whether it's the skateboarder. Two, it's always been about operating outside the mainstream. And three, it's remaining true to yourself.
Moving into the 70s and 80s, we still had the challenge of bringing Mountain Dew from a really rural part of the country to the suburbs and more urban metropolitan areas of the country. So in the 80s, we launched a new campaign called Country Cool. It sort of instilled this philosophy about life. We're always sort of taking risks, but having fun and being carefree at the same time.
It didn't really expand rapidly until you got into the late 80s, coming into the 90s. And when we kicked off the Do the Do campaign, that's really what catapulted it as a mega brand within the soft drink category. Do the Do was really that shift towards imagery.
Done it. Did it. Done it. Doing it tomorrow. Whoa.
Talk about segments of the soft drink category. The carbonated soft drink category, or what we say for short is CSDs, pretty much split into two main areas. The first is your colas and the others is your flavors. Mountain Dew is a leader in the flavor category. As a category overall, CSDs have hit a rough patch over the past couple of years. We certainly haven't seen a lot of growth in the category as folks are starting to drink other alternative beverages like your waters, your non-carbonated beverages, juice drinks. So it's a little bit more of an effort for us to make sure we're top of mind when folks go to their store to purchase beverages. So when we talk about the Mountain Dew consumer, we kind of talk about it in two ways. One, we talk about that existing base that we have, those folks that drink Mountain Dew a ton right now. And we also talk about that kind of next generation of Mountain Dew users. So when you talk about the existing base, it's mostly Gen X, slightly older, very male-oriented consumer base. Guys who have kind of grown up with the brand, who associated with the Do campaigns from back in the 80s and into the early 90s. And folks who really kind of vision themselves as part of what Mountain Dew means, this idea of being just a little bit different, being a little bit rebellious.
Bad Cheetah.
When you talk about folks who are kind of next, we talk to a much younger audience. It's really about how do I express myself differently and who am I as an individual, and that's why Mountain Dew is a connection for them. They see it as a differentiated beverage. It's such a fragmented beverage world right now that it's tough to get that mind share to make sure that once folks try it, they continue to drink it often. So really our target as we continue to grow our brand is that younger audience, that core male, that guy who is looking for something a little bit different. It's a difficult consumer to talk to. One, because there's so many other brands that are trying to get attention. They've got a lot of media inputs coming at them, and they're engaged in so many different areas that when you talk about TV, they're not giving their full attention to TV anymore. It's really hard to break through that clutter. So you've got to be creative, and you've got to make sure that you're talking to that consumer in a way that they're willing to accept what you're saying, and then many times willing to say, hey, you know what? I enjoy what you're saying, and I want to tell my friends about it.
The carbonated soft drink market has really been soft for, I would say, about the last 10 years. It's been declining. With the economy, the carbonated soft drink market has really taken a hit. So it's a very challenging environment. There has been, in the last several years, a proliferation of new products. The biggest line extension that really kicked off a ton of innovation in the industry was Mountain Dew's own Code Red. It just lit the world on fire when that brand was launched. And then you saw for several years people, ourselves and our competitors, kind of trying to chase that same growth. With the rise of energy drinks, with the rise of enhanced water, there's been growth coming from all places. The model of how we compete has dramatically had to change over the last few years.
The original genesis of the first Democracy campaign was all about an acknowledgement of consumers desiring richer brand experiences, trying to connect with brands on an authentic level. So with Democracy, what we were trying to do was tap into consumers and specifically millennial consumers that were kind of already fans of the brand and kind of harness their passion a bit and get them into the franchise in a deeper way. And we had noticed that the traditional ways of connecting with consumers weren't working as well in terms of TV and radio advertising and traditional forms of advertising. So we wanted to go with a more kind of deep and immersive experience for consumers, and we felt that digital was the right way to reach them. So Democracy One was kind of this rich, immersive storytelling experience that fused different elements between gaming and entertainment and storytelling and the early workings of social media in terms of message boards and consumers forming teams and collaborating with one another.
There are those who still remember how it all began. Creativity and self-expression were outlawed. The great darkness had begun.
We worked with Forrest Whitaker, who is an executive producer of the creative experience that went along with it. So he helped us film a 5-minute introductory movie.
An epic quest to find the elixir of freedom.
3 teams formed in the original Democracy experience, and all 3 teams created their own individual product, and ultimately all 3 of those products were brought to the marketplace for a real-time, in-market national vote.
The nation will taste 3 candidates and vote for one to become the next Mountain Dew. Created by Dew Drinkers, for Dew Drinkers.
So the objective of Democracy One was really to harness the passion of Mountain Dew consumers and invite our loyal brand fanatics into the Mountain Dew experience and invite them to participate in the creation of 3 potential candidates to be the next Mountain Dew product.
Of 27 minutes per visit, they created 3 unique new flavor combinations. Consumers created all elements of the drink, including the name, flavor, color, logo, and battle cry of each new Mountain Dew. Then, this summer, the 3 candidates hit the shelves for the whole country to taste.
We kept them engaged through a digital and online experience in the coming months as we developed the products, and then ultimately the 3 products came to market, and we did an online vote where we had approximately 500,000 consumers voting for which of the 3 should stay on as a permanent addition to the Mountain Dew family. So Democracy One was a great example of very deep consumer engagement. So across all phases, we had 1.5 million consumers participate in some aspect of the Democracy online experience. We had 750,000 consumers participating in the creation of the product. And then moving forward into the voting stage, we had an amazing amount of success with 500,000 consumers voting, millions and millions of packages on shelf, and ultimately, a very good groundswell of support for the ultimate winning product, which was Mountain Dew Voltage. Fall 2008, a year after Democracy kicked off, Mountain Dew Voltage was launched as a permanent addition and a line extension to the Mountain Dew family of products.
After Democracy 1 and into Democracy 2, there was this explosion of social media, and it was an opportunity for us to reach a broader audience, but also talk very directly to a niche audience of folks who absolutely love the brand in ways that we were never able to do so before. And so it sparked the idea of, if we're going to get folks really involved in the innovation process, let's start the dialogue early. Let's make sure that folks feel like they can talk amongst themselves to develop brands. And that was the genesis of Democracy 2. It was less about, hey guys, come to this site and you can have this amazing experience that will then result in products. It was more of, let us come to you, and amongst those communities that you're already feeling comfortable in and that you're talking about Mountain Dew on a regular basis anyway, Let's go to those communities and have you guys start to construct the next Mountain Dew beverages based on your associations in places where you already are.
Everyone who knows that to get what you want, you have to make yourself heard. More than 1 million of you got loud. More than 1 million of you made your choice clear.
The Democracy campaign can be split up into 7 different stages. So we kicked it off with a truck stop tour where we traveled around the country with 7 new mystery flavors of Mountain Dew. People could come and test the different flavors and vote for which one they liked the best. We gave away 50 home testing kits online to fans who gave the best video testimonials for why they thought they were the most qualified to test new flavors. So from the truck stop votes and the video testimonials, we were able to cull down the 7 flavors to 3 flavors. The second stage was all about organizing our fans online. We established a private online community called Dew Labs. That's comprised of 4,000 of our biggest, most loyal, die-hard Dew fans. And we mailed every single member all 3 flavors, and by testing those, they aligned and organized themselves into 3 different flavor nations, 1 for each flavor.
509. 509.
In the third stage, fans chose the product colors for all 3 flavors. Then we opened up the votes to all Dew fans online. So we had a live streaming event on our Facebook page where fans were able to vote by shooting a paintball that was actually shot live on video for their specific color. So the color that had the most paintball shots ended up being the final color of the product. The fourth stage was all about naming these products. So in Dew Labs, the members suggested hundreds of different names for each of the 3 flavors. Through voting and discussion, they narrowed it down to 3 different names for each of the flavors, so 9 names in total. After Dew Labs determined the 9 different name options, we opened it up to Twitter. The Dew fans created 9 different Twitter accounts and reached out to their followers and their networks and their friends and family to become followers of their favorite name. At the end of a week-long Twitter race, the name that had the most followers on Twitter became the final name for the product. We opened the packaging up to anyone, individuals, small agencies, to submit their vision for what a Mountain Dew can should look like. Fan voting on Facebook determined the top 10 designers.
Then the fun begins as far as the Democracy decision-making process. What's the advertising going to be? Who's the agency that's going to do the advertising? And every one of these decisions is made from the outset by the Dew Labs community and then brought out to the general public for them to weigh in on and make the final decision.
We had 6 finalists come out of the consumer voting. Then we took those 6 finalists and brought them into Dew Labs and had the flavor nations once again choose which director or agency they wanted to produce and create the TV spot for their particular flavor. So in the 7th and final stage is when the products were finally in market and voting had begun. And during this time, we had a grassroots tour happen in market. So we had 3 different vehicles travel the country, 1 for each flavor. Each of the flavor teams had a blog, a Twitter feed, this instant messaging communication tool that was on democracy.com that allowed them to communicate in real time with the fans at home. And so through the grassroots program, we really raised a lot of awareness and we're able to engage consumers both in person and online in a really unique way.
We picked the color. Now we need to pick the name. 493 needs a name.
From a success metric perspective, we've been extremely happy with how Democracy has gone. From a volume perspective, we've met all of our goals volumetrically. We saw sales really rise during that time frame. We also saw some amazing buzz online. So not just on democracy.com where people could come and vote, which, by the way, was extremely successful. We got almost 3 million votes, some very, very passionate consumers. But across a large spectrum, it wasn't a small group who voted multiple times. We certainly saw a very large base of consumers who voted. But also very interesting was our Facebook growth. So when we started this program back in June of 2009, we had about 125,000 Facebook members. We now are at 1 million Facebook members, not because we teased it out or because we incentivized anybody to be a part of it, but because it grew organically. Folks talked about the program, they talked about Mountain Dew, they talked about wanting to get involved. That message spread, and we saw that type of increase over a short amount of time, which we're extremely proud of, because it just shows the passion of our fans spreading the message of Mountain Dew word of mouth.
At the end of the day, you have to move cases, and so volume is critically important. And if you look at Democracy One, we moved cases, both in the limited time offering, 60 million cases in a 12-week period, and then when we released the final product on that, an additional 17 million cases. So that's a pretty significant business for Pepsi, and that's a critical aspect of it, that financial component of it. The second piece of it, though, is are we deepening the connection with the people who love the brand? And classic mass marketing really appeals to the people in the middle, switchers, or in political terms, the undecideds, right? And so that's what classic marketing is all about. Hit that middle, because that's where you find the largest number of people. What we decided to do is let's go after the hard support, the people who absolutely love the brand and embrace them in a deeper way. We went for that first and foremost. And the logic of it was that what will follow, the hard support, will be the soft support and the undecideds. The third thing was to bring in new users. For the Mountain Dew franchise, if you look at it historically, if you look at it on a map, it's kind of an L shape, starting with the middle of the country. It's the Midwest coming down to the Southeast. That's the sweet spot for Mountain Dew. For growth, we had to look at other regions of the country, but also for younger consumers who could come into the franchise. So we wanted to see new consumers who are not part of the Mountain Dew franchise or who are infrequent users of Mountain Dew products.
Mountain Dew Distortion, one of 3 new flavors of Mountain Dew. You choose which one stays.
We wanted to see them come in and become long-term users of Mountain Dew.
Babe, I need to lay on my
stomach
so I can tan my back.
Babe, this is what you always do. Babe, I hate the beach.
Babe.
Oh, that was cold.
Mountain Dew Typhoon. Can you handle it? One of 3 new flavors of Mountain Dew. You choose which one stays.
Well, I think what Democracy One and ultimately Democracy Two has done has kind of solidified Mountain Dew's position as a brand that acknowledges and embraces the desires of their fans. And there's tangible proof that we're listening to the voice of the consumer throughout. So it uniquely situates Mountain Dew in the consumer landscape as a brand for the people, by the people.
When you look at a brand like Mountain Dew, and actually many of our brands in the category and in our company, we absolutely used to have a focus on creating iconic TV advertising. That was how the marketing model worked. Right now, when you look at what the brand needs going forward, that's just not going to do it. It's not going to be able to break through. And so we are completely changing our approach. It's really much more about, hey, how many people can we engage on Facebook to help us vote for democracy? The fact that they're actually taking their own personal time and opting in to engage with something the brand is doing is such a bigger win for us. And so it's just the way we're measuring success is not, how many GRPs, how many people saw our TV advertising. It's really how many people engaged, how many votes did we get, how many people are coming on the site and trying the product in the market. And so it's really fundamentally changed. Mountain Dew has actually been at the forefront of an evolving marketing model, constantly leading and testing. The entire industry is moving more and more toward consumer engagement. So no longer is it okay to just stand and talk to your consumers one way and try and communicate your message. It just doesn't break through anymore.
Cherry? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I think it might be a cherry.
Something cherry? What do you think?
I spent some time in the music business, and one of the odd things that I've done is I worked with Snoop Dogg, and he said something really fascinating to me that always stuck with me, because here's a guy who was in a business that turns out artists probably every 18 months. No artist lasts more than a few years, yet he's lasted now over 18 years in the business. And I asked him how he did it, and what he said was really interesting. He said, most artists think of their fans as someone who's below them. They get on the pedestal and they look down. They want the fans to bow down to them. He said, I get on the pedestal and I pull up as many people as possible on the pedestal with me. And I think that's what we're trying to do with this marketing platform, is how do you pull people on the pedestal with us? How do you allow them to leverage our infrastructure, our assets, and empower them in that way. And I think that's part of what we need to do.